Good evening to everybody. Welcome to our regularly scheduled Zoning Advisory Commission meeting for July 6th, 2022. I call this meeting to order. Sheena, Travis, would you please take roll?
Christ,
Here.
Russell,
Here.
Zuccaro,
Here.
Norton,
Here.
Kemp, and Mulligan.
Here. Thank you. Can you please confirm we're in compliance with the Iowa Open Meetings Law?
Yes, we are.
Thank you. All right. So commissioners, in front of you are our meeting minutes from our meeting on June 1st. At this point, I would entertain any modifications or a motion for approval.
Motion to approve the minutes from June 1st, 2022.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second.
Zuccaro,
Aye.
Russell,
Aye.
Christ,
Aye.
Norton,
Aye.
Mulligan.
I will need to abstain from that. I was not here. Thank you. Okay, very good. So this evening, we've got 2 action items and a single public hearing. So, good evening to all of you. So as we enter into the action item here, so the way this will work is we'll ask the applicant to come forward and state your name, state your address, and what it is specifically that you're asking from the Zoning Advisory Commission. We may have some questions for you, and then we'll turn it over to the staff for their report. So with that, our first item here, Kristen and Steve Vossen on Manson Road.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to accuse myself from the next 3 items. Thanks for coming, Pat.
Thank you,
See you
Pat.
later. I'll be out here.
Good evening.
Good evening. Hi, I'm Kristen Vossen, and I live at 2319 Manson Road.
Steve Vossen from 2319 Manson Road also.
I'm Rob Kelker with Beasing and Associates, 1212 Locust Street here in Dubuque.
Thank you.
Well, good evening. We are here tonight to request that we have our barn put in its own lot for a few reasons. Number 1, safety. Number 2, so we can absolutely have good billing for both our house and our barn, because our barn is now like a home. And number 3, for estate planning. So those are our intentions for this evening, but you haven't been to our property. So we thought we'd take you through what we call in the teaching world a picture walk of our property. So Sheena is going to help us through our PowerPoint here, and I'm going to get started, and then I'm going to let Steve kind of take over and explain as we kind of walk you through our property so you get a good visual of where our barn is located in Dubuque. So here's our entrance to our property, and we have our cute little puppies right there saying hello.
And then we also have a gated to our property, so nobody can get in without us letting them in or having a code. And then when you get down to the bottom, we have a Y. So one goes to our neighbor Jan's, and one goes to our house. The barn sits in the middle. And just real quick, the roads were there previous because at one time it was a trailer park. So there were trailers up top, and there's trailers in the bottom, and there's trailers in the middle. So that would be the road. And then once you get here, now you just get past Y, and there's the barn. And then we also have a pump house. The pump house is original from the trailer park, and that used to be a laundromat, supposedly, back in the day, when they did not have them. And then next, this is more of an aerial view of our surrounding area. So we kind of sit in a valley with trees all surrounding us all the way around, pretty much no matter what direction you look in. Front of the barn, again, hillsides in front and back. So next. That's another, just a side view of the barn from that view. What's that, hon? 26 acres. And this is the back of the barn. So now you see the back of where you're taking pictures from originally. So obviously another hillside, all trees. And Then you see our closest neighbors, obviously up on the tree side there. That'd be the closest ones to us as far as people that live next to us. Again, just another picture of the barn. This one is without leaves on the trees. So we're still very protected down where we're at. And then the barn is obviously 2,800 square feet. The footprint, I should say. And then I think this is just another view. We'll go another view.
Hey, I put a lot of time into this.
The back of the barn, and this shows the basement too, obviously. And there's 3 garage doors in the basement. One's a shop, one's a garage, and one is a cap garage. So, and I can explain that as we go. That's the storage underneath the patio. And then the next one is a patio. Obviously, that's the top of the thing. That is the garage, so that's the whole center of the barn in the basement. And that's 1,600 square feet. And this is my shop. Oh, that's a stoop. So this is when you walk in the front of the barn. We did a patio, but we kept storage underneath it too. And there's the top of that storage. This is when you walk down to the basement, just to explain that it's more like a house. So if you turn that way, you go into the basement, and when you go this way, you go into the shop. But both fire-rated doors to separate the basement from the barn. That is my shop. Very messy. And that's 1,100 square feet. And then obviously the barn square footage again. That's inside of the barn looking from the loft down. Basically, I mean, you can see that it is more like a house than a barn. The barn was a 1907 barn that we had taken down in Tipton, Iowa, and then we rebuilt it on this property. So the barn is a 1907 barn, all put together with the wood nails and mortise and everything. So the kitchen of the barn, which is nicer than our house. This is just a dining table and the fireplace behind it, obviously. And then the 2 bathrooms. Full bathroom here and then a half bathroom on the main floor. The loft, right here, this would be the bedroom in the loft. And that is the second bedroom in the loft, and that's pretty much the entire loft. So, and again, I'll give it back to her, but for the safety and the utility bills, because that's more her than me.
Just kind of reviewing why we're here tonight is, number one, safety. You know, we do think about our houses down the one side. If Steve's having a heart attack or somebody that's at the barn, right now our addresses for both properties are 2319. If you're having a heart attack, I mean, minutes do count. So we would love to have that in place so that our safety is all good.
And we do spend a lot of time in the barn. So we watch movies down there, and we do a lot of family stuff too in there. And that's originally why the barn was built, was more for family events than that. But once it got built, we've learned that the safety part of it has to come too.
And we do have all the fire hydrants, everything's to code. The city has been there to check everything for permits, codes, fire, and so forth. The second purpose then is for billing purposes. I mean, it is kind of a nightmare to have media come and they go to the barn, they've been waiting there for a while. So it just would be nice to have our billing for 2 different homes and finally for estate planning, because right now the barn and the house are on the same lot. So you cannot split our property. If we ever wanted to sell one or the other, we cannot, or gift one off to someone, to do 2 different families or couples, we cannot do that. Yeah. So that's our main intentions for the barn and why we're here this evening.
Any
Great.
questions?
For us.
Or any questions for us?
Well, thank you for that.
Okay.
Commissioners, any questions? You did a great job of presenting.
We'll let him-
Thank you.
Well, we at Beasing Associates had produced a plat for the barn and for the remainder of the lot for Kristen and Steve. Lot 1 would encompass the barn. This does meet all zoning requirements for setbacks, and there is existing access easements to it But yeah, it does meet all that. Lot 1 would contain the barn. Lot 2 would contain the remainder, including their house. But everything does follow zoning requirements. Just wanted to add that.
Okay.
And just one more real quick one. The whole property is 26 acres. So it is a big chunk that sits down in that valley.
Okay. Well, if there's no questions, gang, thank you. Appreciate it. You can have a seat.
Thank you.
All right. Sheena, are you giving the report on this
I
one?
will be.
Okay,
Yep.
go ahead.
So I'll just roll into this a little bit of the history here for this property. The property was subdivided circa 1900 and was originally developed, as the property owners mentioned, as a mobile home park around 1950. It was annexed into the city in 1979 and was redeveloped around 2000, and all of the trailers were removed by 2011. The current residence that sits on the property was built in 2015, and the barn-style accessory structure was built in 2018, and then the the patio and deck additions, as I mentioned, the stoop. That was not me, for the record. Okay, so was constructed in 2020. And so I'll just scroll to the next one here. So just a brief history, this about the property itself. So about the barn specifically, the structure itself was approved at 2,800 square feet by the Zoning Board of Adjustment through a special exception in 2017. So that essentially was to allow greater than, the maximum 1,000 square feet on the property. So they did receive approval for that. In 2020, the applicant, property owner, came back and they did add the cap garage, the stoop, and the attached deck. And so those were approved through a special exception also. As I mentioned already, the single-family residence was permitted and constructed in 2013 and was finished in 2015. And then the barn-style accessory structure was permitted to be constructed in 2018, essentially 2018 to 2020. And to date, the property owner has obtained the necessary permits and inspections for the barn structure, which has been built to meet single-family residential standards. However, per our code, it is still viewed as an accessory structure. So that's an important distinction. Part of what this will allow the property owner to do is to essentially make this a freestanding, separate single-family residence on a separate lot. Again, just a brief overview. The subject property or parcel that they're subdividing tonight is about 12 acres. The property owner does also own another approximately 12 acres on the north side here. You can see it outlined in orange. They are looking to, as mentioned, subdivide the barn structure onto its a separate parcel. Surrounding zonings are R1, R2, and agricultural zoning. And as the property owner mentioned, it does kind of sit in a valley here along the Catfish Creek Valley, surrounded by wooded hillsides in the area. So a little bit about the plat. It is a simple subdivision because it is creating two parcels. However, it does require a waiver of the bulk regulations specifically for street frontage. The Unified Development Code does require that a single family lot in the R1 zone would have 50 feet of street frontage. And so they're requesting a waiver of that as part of the subdivision approval, thus the reason why the simple subdivision is coming before the Zoning Advisory Commission. The lot 1 would be approximately 0.64 acres, and as mentioned, would contain the barn-style structure. And the lot 2 would be approximately 11.23 acres and would contain the existing residence and the existing pump house. Moving on here. So lot 1, as I mentioned, would require waiver for the frontage. The access to lot 1 would be maintained as it currently is. So it would be access off of the Manson Road cul-de-sac via a 20-foot wide access easement that runs down the existing private driveway. So that is how the property owner intends to take access to that parcel, that lot rather. Again, just reiterating the plat here. And then just a closer view of how that lot 1 would be pulled out of the property. We've seen some photos. And then one of the things that's worth mentioning is that, creating an accessory or creating a separate single family property would allow this property owner to utilize the barn structure as they would any other single-family residence structure in an R1 zone. This does include short-term rentals. That would be something that they would be allowed to do under Iowa code as part of this, as well as if they wanted to rent the property to a permanent tenant that could obtain a rental license through the city. So it really gives them the full flexibility to really utilize this property as an R1 single-family property. And with that, staff is available to answer any questions that you may have.
Sheena, it doesn't allow for rentals for events and stuff like that, correct?
That's a great question. So yes, I should clarify that that the short-term rental, the Iowa code for short-term rentals does not allow for the property to be used for any retail, restaurant, banquet space, event centers, or similar uses. So it really is meant to be more residential in nature. That's really the focus of that law.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Sheena? Okay, well, I don't see any issues with the request. I will entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion to, what did I want to say? Accept the plat of survey of Annabelle Barn lot, waiving the lot frontage, or the street frontage for Lot 1.
Very good.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Travis, would you take roll, please?
Norton, sorry. He abstained. Zucaro,
Aye.
Russell,
Aye.
Christ,
Aye.
Mulligan.
Aye. Okay.
Great.
That motion passes. Thank you for coming.
Business.
Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and move on to item number 2, plat of survey. Do I understand that we are going to be requesting to table that?
Yeah, yes, that is correct, Chair Mulligan. Yes, the property, or the applicant rather, is requesting that this be tabled to the August meeting, as they are still working with the city to work out the details regarding access to this property.
So
or to this
Sheena,
parcel.
we should, the commission should vote on this, correct?
Yes, I think the request is to make a motion to table to
Table?
August.
Yep.
Correct.
Yep, okay. So with that, would a commissioner please make a motion to table item number 2 to the August meeting?
I move we table plat of survey of Y Camp Place number 2 until our next scheduled meeting.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to table item number 2 of our action items for this evening. Travis, would you call roll?
Christ,
Aye.
Russell,
Aye.
Zucaro,
Aye.
Zucaro,
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Aye.
Mulligan.
Aye. Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to our last item, public hearing. Is our applicant here? Thank you.
Good evening, Zoning Commission members, Chairman Mulligan, staff. I'm here on behalf of Grand River Medical Group to request a revision to the Westmark PUD. As you know, they are building a medical office building out on the west side of town at the more or less intersection of Pennsylvania and the Northwest Arterial. There it is. As it turns out, in the original PUD that was approved for Westmark, they, for some reason, did not allow for illuminated directional signs. They allow for lighting of buildings, and they allow for the main signs to be lit, but the second, they call them secondary signs, are not allowed to be illuminated. We found this to be rather odd, and didn't realize this until we submitted the sign package to the city for a sign permit, and it was brought to our attention. So in that, we're requesting that we would like to modify the PUD to allow for internally illuminated secondary signage.
Okay, very good. Any questions for Mr. Norton? Okay, great. This is a public hearing, and with there being no public in the room, I'll at least open it. and I will close it.
I'll skip the rebuttal.
Any rebuttal to that?
I'll skip that.
Okay, great. Sheena?
Yes.
If you would, please.
Yes, Sheena Moon, Associate Planner. As the applicant articulated, this Westmark PUD would encompass the entire PUD area. It's an important thing to note. This is specifically coming out of a request from the Grand River Medical Group, which is developing their current building, which is, as you can see here, outlined in red on the slide before you. A number of tenants are located within this PUD area. So I just want to be clear that any amendments to the PUD would affect, the entire PUD area. As the applicant mentioned, the PUD does define this as secondary signs, and I'm not going to necessarily scroll through all of these. I think the most important thing to note here is that the secondary signs are really meant to provide directional, for safe and efficient flow of vehicle and pedestrians on property. And that one of the specific criteria here is that secondary signs shall not be illuminated. As stated previously, that's what the applicant is seeking an amendment to in the PUD. For the proposed, for the subject property, the Grand River Medical Group property, this is the signs that we're talking about. These are the secondary signs. They're limited to 6 feet in area when it comes to text. These are within compliance with respect to the size and scale, as well as the height. They can be up to 5 feet in height. But as mentioned, they are requesting to have these illuminated. And I think the applicant had articulated and the owner rather as well, that, wayfinding in the evening, especially the winter hours, this is desirable for them to allow, their patrons and patients to be able to see and identify the property. And that is the nature of the request. With that, we're available to answer any questions that you may have.
Sheena, there was one.
Oh, yes, thank you. Yes, we did receive, Jason Dubin in our office did receive a phone call from a neighboring a resident across the Northwest Arterial who had just kind of expressed general opposition to the construction that was happening in the area, as well as the project in general. They didn't provide specifics as to why, so we felt it was pertinent to make the commission aware that, in your packet, that we did receive that phone call. But other than that, we've not received any other input or opposition to this request.
Okay, thank you.
How many signs are we talking about?
We are talking about 2 for this subject property. And so again, just to be clear, this would amend the PUD for all secondary signage. So as you can see in the bottom set of criteria here, there is not a maximum number of secondary signs that are limited on the property or any property within the Westmark PUD, but there are specific regulations as to how big those signs could be and what they can be used for, so specifically what they can contain. In this instance, as I mentioned, they would be not exceeding 6 square feet in area for the actual text itself. They can be no taller than 5 feet when on the ground, and there's a height limitation of 8 feet, I believe, when they're wall mounted. So there are some specific regulations that would limit scale and of these signs, although the PUD currently does not restrict the quantity of them. For this subject property, there are two freestanding secondary signs that they are hoping to illuminate.
Okay.
I have 2 questions you can clarify. So can you clarify for me the difference between a primary then and a secondary sign? And then I don't know if this is a question for Pat. So, and you alluded to it, Sheena. So it's lit, and I can understand in the winter months, right? It's dark at 5 o'clock. So are these businesses open till is there an acute care center in here that it's open till 10 o'clock or Hardig? So I wasn't sure what the reasoning why it needs to be lit at night. I'm assuming all the other businesses in this area don't have lighted signs.
That is my understanding as well, is that they don't have illuminated. I will let the applicant speak to any specifics about hours of operation. I do know that it's the Grand River Medical Group as well as Hardig does occupy a space in the building, but I will let Mr. Norton speak to any specifics regarding hours.
I'm not exactly sure on the hours. I really don't know. But the intent is more for in the winter when it gets dark at 5 o'clock, 4:30, 5 o'clock, to light the sign internally for that. for that time period. I don't believe, I mean, they're not going to have a 24-hour emergency room or anything
But
like
I
that.
wasn't sure, like, if Harding's is open till 9 or 10 o'clock, or if it's open for,
I don't believe so. I think Harding's hours will match that of the general office.
okay.
And as far as I know, I believe it would be open to like 6 o'clock or so, but I don't know that for certain.
And then a primary sign, Sheena?
Yes.
Is that on the building? Primary?
Yes, so I'm sorry, yes, your first question was regarding the principal or primary signage. So yes, generally, and there was an exhibit of that actually in the packet, the full sign packet that they submitted. Yes, generally primary signage is maybe wall mounted or perhaps on a pylon. These secondary signs are really meant for vehicular and pedestrian flow, so they're a smaller scale. You see it when you drive in the parking lot. It helps you know where to park for a certain office or where to maybe to access, to enter for a certain type of tenant. So maybe you want to enter Harding here versus, and for this project, the applicant's not proposing those specific entry signs, but that could be an instance in which a secondary sign could be used. So the Harding entrance might be at one location and, you might have the Grand River Medical Group or some other clinic at another location, which they might want to be able to provide that secondary signage and wayfinding for. So it's really, yeah, and as also mentioned here, identifying parking spaces or handicap accessibility, that can be part of it too. So really meant for wayfinding and directional. It's very similar. It's essentially, a secondary signage is essentially the same as what we call directional signage within our ordinance, or our Unified Development Code, rather.
And I'm assuming it'll be lit all night.
No,
Oh, no.
I don't believe so. No.
They're traditionally on a timer.
Usually,
okay.
yeah, they usually shut off just, if nothing else, to save energy, to save wear and tear on the bulbs and
Okay.
make them last longer.
On 11.
And-
Okay.
And if I may just add to that, in the event that the commission is concerned about, this becoming an all-night signage, maybe not for this subject property, for another, you can certainly include language that would restrict, I hesitate to recommend this, but you could certainly restrict the hours of any illuminated signage for secondary signage if you found that appropriate to do so. It's really challenging for us to enforce that, but if that was an extreme, a concern, then that is certainly an option.
This PUD, right? It's
It
just for
is-
that Westmark area. It's not
Yes.
for any other.
That's correct. This
So-
is not amending the Unified Development Code. It is just for this Westmark PUD.
And there's not really any residential right around it.
Correct. And I think it's also worth noting that our Unified Development Code for directional signage does allow illumination. So it's a little interesting that it kind of is similar in the I guess you would say goal of what the secondary signage is very similar to directional signage. So our Unified Development Code does allow our directional signage to be illuminated currently. So in this instance, this PUDs happen to be written in that it would not be allowed to be illuminated. So just a comparison's sake of what the code might allow in other areas outside of this PUD, just to be clear.
Can I ask real quick on the elevation of the secondary sign? It says internal illumination not permitted for secondary signs. The document you had up a minute ago says just illumination. I did want to highlight, a lot of times what you'll see is the internally illuminated are quite a bit less invasive, if you will.
Sure.
So what a business will traditionally do is simply light it up externally, which is going to be more of an issue for neighbors than an internally illuminated sign. So I think an internally illuminated sign, as they've shown us here, is going to be a better outcome than sticking a lamp outside to,
Right, spotlight.
because it just shines, up anyways.
Right, right.
So, okay. Any other questions, comments?
Thank you.
Okay, if none, I will entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move to amend the Westmark Plan Unit Development to allow for internally illuminated secondary signs.
I will second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Travis, if you would take roll, please.
DeCaro,
Aye.
Christ,
Aye.
Russell,
Aye.
Mulligan.
Aye. Okay, motion passes. I believe that will go before City Council,
Yes, it will. It will go on July 18th to the City
July
Council.
18th. Okay. Thank you much. All right, let's see. Any items from the public? Wally? Seeing none. Any items from the commission?
It's election of officers.
I understand. I will say,
see it
I
on
believe
there. Oh, it
Pat
is. Yep.
and I were, our names did go before the city council last night, so we're.
Oh, it did?
It did.
Oh.
For reappointment.
So lucky you.
Congratulations.
Congratulations, yes.
Yeah.
So it's official, I'm back in?
I believe so. Yes.
Glad to have you.
Yes. Congrats
All right.
to you both. Yes, thank you both. Sincerely, thank you for continuing to serve.
Okay, so we'll turn it back to you then. So we have some election of officers to discuss, right?
Yes, that is correct. So this is that time of year where we need to appoint a chair and a vice chair. I did include on the dais here an email from Commissioner Kemp, who was unable to be present tonight, but did specify that she would graciously decline any nominations at this time. So just to share that with the commission and for the record. So at this.
She will remain on the commission, though?
Yes,
Is that right? Okay.
yes, she will remain, but just when it comes to chair or vice chair.
Or secretary?
Yes, or secretary, thank you. Yes, yes. So all three positions, we'll be voting for all three roles. So essentially how this usually works is we will, look to the commissioners to make nominations, and then we would make a second and then vote from there for each of the positions. And we would start with the secretary position. I think if that's appropriate.
Who's the current secretary?
That is a wonderful question.
That's a good question.
Current secretary.
Could have looked that up ahead of time. Right, that wasn't you.
Is it?
That's terrible.
That's just a name only.
I don't recall signing anything.
Secretary, I know.
I don't think.
Planning Services Manager Wally Wordmont. So, yes, we have three officers. We have the chairperson, vice chairperson, and then the secretary. The planning staff facilitates the role of the secretary, keeping minutes, doing the documentation. The secretary position would just fill in the case of the chairperson or the vice chairperson may not be available at the time. I'm not 100% sure who exactly is in that position right now without looking at my documentation, but I wouldn't doubt if it was you, Rich.
I
You
guess,
know what? Can I make one comment really quick? A situation arose recently in which my position as the chairperson of this board was called into question regarding an item that was discussed not long ago. And I believe the commentary was misguided, to say the least. What I will say is I've certainly enjoyed serving in this role and will continue to do so as long as you want me to. But I did want to say that came up regarding an item not long ago in which I did recuse myself. And so, as somebody who, I'm in the real estate business in the community. And so those situations will arise as they did this evening with Pat. And so I wanted you all to know that arose not long ago in which my position within the commission was proposed by an individual that it persuaded a decision. I firmly disagree with that, and I would assume you all would as well, but I wanted that to be stated. So anyways.
that actually calls in the integrity of the entire commission.
Yeah.
And that's where I get offended by that comment. And to piggyback onto this, I've had similar comments because I do end up recusing myself from so many different items. Half of them are ones that I know nothing about. It just happened to be that the company that I'm a partner in performed a survey or what have you.
Yeah.
I don't know anything about them. had nothing to do with them, but yet I still recused myself just because of that potential conflict. But yeah, I've had that question brought to me as well of, well, geez, or even to the point of like, for example, tonight when I act as an applicant on a project I had been the site design engineer for. Well, geez, you get down and you go and ask your buddies to do something for you. Well, there's a little more integrity involved in this organization than that. So anyway.
Right. Thank you.
It does happen and blow it off.
Sometimes the public doesn't understand either that, we're doing the best we can as a volunteer organization, and we're giving our time to help the city move in the right direction. So
Right.
sometimes you just have to.
And you bring a lot of knowledge.
Yeah.
that some of us don't have. Both Matt and Pat and everyone. So. Can we start the other direction? Can I nominate Matt for chair? Mulligan?
I'll second.
Continue. Okay. If somebody else wants it.
Want to take a roll?
If he's willing to do it, I'll definitely support that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second.
Yep.
This is for Chairperson Mulligan. Christ,
Aye.
Russell,
Aye.
Zakaro,
Aye.
Norton,
Aye.
and Mulligan.
I will abstain. I will hear about it.
Okay.
Okay.
Is Becky our vice chair?
Yes.
Yes, she is.
was.
Becky is current.
Okay.
Yeah.
Pat?
Did you entertain any more? Or are you just here for the ride? You're here for the ride. I can tell.
My only problem is sometimes it's hard for me, like if you can't it's hard to make the city council. If we didn't have to always.
Yeah.
Sure, I can address that. So COVID created a lot of different changes. And what's happened now, especially with the opportunity to attend the city council meetings, you don't need to attend in person anymore. There's the opportunity to always attend virtually. And that's always been an offer now from on. So if you can't be personally present, there's very little opportunity that they ask, what's the commission's opinion, right? But you can participate virtually. And that's an opportunity that we extend to all of our commissioners, not only of this commission, but the other commissions that may be called forward. So, but yeah, that's definitely an opportunity to take advantage of that virtually as opposed to being in presence. Some people like to attend in person, not naming anyone, Matt Mulligan, but other ones that be able to attend, you can attend virtually. So,
The front row, Wally. Terry, what would be your?
I would like a few more years under my belt.
Okay. Very good. Rich?
You can do it.
Yeah.
I'm non-committal.
No, very good.
If nobody else wants to do it, I will be this
All right,
vice.
I nominate Rich, Commissioner Russell, to be the vice chairperson.
I will second.
All right. Norton,
Aye.
Russell,
That was loud.
Zakaro,
Aye.
Christ,
Aye.
Mulligan.
Aye. Rich?
Back, I'm gonna screech like that.
I was still in the
Secretary.
Being that, what's
I
that?
mean, secretary.
Yeah.
Well, since you've got another 2 years locked up,
Of all the positions, that would be my favorite.
with an
Pat
at-large,
Norton for secretary.
I'll second.
pushing in a second.
All in favor?
Aye.
You have to remind me, though, if I have to do anything.
Apparently not.
We absolutely will.
Yeah, I don't
Okay,
remember doing
any
anything.
other items? Sheena, Travis, Wally?
I don't know.
Nope, I just want to just kind of reiterate a point that was brought up with regards to conflicts of interest. So you're a volunteer board. We talk about conflict of interest when you meet with me, right? When you come through in an orientation. And there are situations where you are serving the public here on this board, right? And then there are situations where there may be a direct conflict of interest that you recuse yourself from the board. But there are opportunities where we have situations where you step away from the board, but you're also the applicant. So you have to have an opportunity to be able to speak before the board. I would argue that it actually puts you a little bit more at a disadvantage because you have less voting members now making a decision on your application. We have situations that have come up with the zoning board of adjustment. There's only 5 members there, and they have to have 3 affirmative votes to approve situations. In this case, we have 7 members. So the actions that were performed with our commission members that are present here, especially tonight with Pat, he had one situation where, like he mentioned, he abstained because his company was involved. He was not the applicant, didn't know speaking or anything in regards to that. There was another one we provided a presentation. Same thing with you, Chairperson Mulligan, who had an opportunity with your application. You most certainly have the ability to come up and present to the Zoning Advisory Commission with regards to any application that you would present before them. And you did the proper thing by recusing yourself from the vote. Where we have real issues would be as if you didn't, in situations where you have a direct financial benefit and you actually vote on your own application, that is where we would deem that you have a conflict of interest. And staff is always there to bounce those questions off of us, and then we also bounce it off our legal staff with regards to that if you have any questions or considerations about that. So I just want to make that very clear that especially after the last night's meeting, nothing based on our information we provide would be perceived as a conflict of interest or any unethical matter in our opinion. So,
Thank you, Wally.
Far so good.
Anything else this evening?
I move we adjourn.
I'll second.
Second
All
that.
right, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you all.